Now let's look at the biology, the third one we talked about. What can I do with biology? First of all, it releases nutrients from the organic matter. They have to live, so they're eating. When they're eating, they're taking in the material that's easy to eat, which is the organic matter, and they die. And their cells become part of the humus, or actually materials that the plants can use. In their process of eating, they fix nitrogen because you remember, carbon's the energy, nitrogen is cells. You have to have protein. Nitrogen is protein. So that is fixing the nitrogen from the soil. They take it out of the air, if the soil's not compacted, of course. If it's open and the air is there, then these little boys in there can actually fix the nitrogen for their cell growth. Increase phosphate availability. If you have a high alkaline soil, you don't have phosphate. I don't think in Europe your pH of your soils are high. You're probably more acid than in America. But phosphate availability, because they again use that as a source of growth in the biological life, and they degrade pesticide. You heard the term biological degradation, right? Biodegradable? Biological degradation. If you don't have the biology, you don't get the degradation. You have to have the two together. And so if you don't feed the biology, you're not going to degrade the pesticides or anything else in the soil because you didn't feed the biology. And that's what we're talking about. If you have a healthy soil, the pathogens cannot survive. Pathogenic organisms love no air. They like tight soils because that's where they can grow, without air. The good guys like air or aerobic systems. That's why we plow, that's why we aerate the soil, get the good guys going and depress the bad guys, because the bad guys like no oxygen, the good guys like oxygen. So what we're trying to do is control that, then we want an aerated soil. And so the pathogens go down. So we don't need to spray poison on the soil, because I can use the natural system to control these pathogenic organisms. In the process of opening that soil, because in biology, the soil structure, which means air spaces, where the habitat of all these biologies can live. That changes the structure, which means the root will not grow. If you can't poke your finger in the soil, typically the root can't go there either. It has to be open enough so the root can grow. It will not grow to a hard surface. It just stops and goes sideways. And then after the biological cycles through their systems, there becomes the organic matter of the soil. Let's look at what the makeup of a biological entity. Here's what they're made up. Number one, carbon. A source of carbon. I can get all my carbon biologically. Not only that, they contain oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and phosphates. So I can, 95% of the system, my crops need. All I have to do is multiply those guys. But what's out there feeding the biology? The industry is not talking about feeding the biology. We are. We're saying if you take care of the soil biology, it'll take care of you. So the key is how to take care of the good biology. I call them the good guys. So let me talk about how biology is the greatest force on this earth. There's nothing man can design, build, mechanical or chemical, that outperforms biology. All right? This is done by the university study, so it's not my numbers, these are their numbers. What we're going to do, we're going to take generations. Generation is, you start with one biology, divides, it gets 2, right? 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and keeps adding up. So first generation, let's suppose each one biological entity takes 1 hour to divide. We know that biology can go in sometimes in minutes, but let's assume an hour it takes to actually replicate itself. So we get one, and the next system, and 1 hour will be 2. 30 generations, or 30 hours, you get a number of 10 to the 9th power. in 10 hours. That's a big number, but let's keep going. 60 generations, or 60 hours, because remember we're doing 1 hour, and we're presuming, no, here's the assumptions. Because in environment, you can't really do this. It has to have enough carbon, it has to have enough water, it has to have enough nitrogen. We're assuming that all, and the waste has to be taken away. We're assuming that's an ideal condition because we're taking just one single entity, feeding everything it needs to grow, and it's dividing at this rate of 1 per hour. So in 60 hours or 60 generations, we have 10 to the 18th. So it's growing pretty fast. In 110 hours or 110 generations, we have a number of 10 to the 33rd power. It's enormous. How big is it? Suppose each entity weighs 10 to the minus 6 grams. Bacteria is like 10 to the minus 12. Protozoa is about this, so we don't know. I'm not choosing any particular biology entity. I'm just saying a biology entity dividing, okay? Because it's not practical to do this, but let me tell you, that's the power we're talking about in biology. Because there's millions of entities in the soil, and they're all competing to get into the best position for their life. They're eating each other, or they're making homes for each other, or sometimes they're working together. But this is the number we're doing. So all we have to do is subtract this number from 10 to the 33rd. That gives you a number, 10 to subtract that. The total weight would equal to 10 to the 27 grams. The Earth only weighs 4 times 10 to the 27. You produce a mass 1/4 the mass of the Earth in 110 hours. You tell me any chemical, anything mechanical you can do on this Earth that can grow that much mass that fast. There isn't anything. The key is the biology. If you can feed the biology, it'll take care of you. That's what we're talking about. What the industry has done is attack the biology, and so we don't get this kind of growth. We have suppressed growth if we have any growth at all. And then think about this. We all know how many species we lost above the soil, right? I mean, all the animals have disappeared, a lot of the plant lives have disappeared, but no one has factored in what we lost beneath our feet in the soil. They're gone. They're missing. And how are we going to get back? If you destroy something, we always think it'll always come back. No. We haven't done it on the top above the soil. What do we think we're going to do below the soil? It's gone. So here's the farmers. They're putting this stuff on, but what we say, if you can put the material, compost or casting, whatever you can put it on the carbon, and you support the protozoa numbers in the order of 20,000 per gram, you can measure that, by the way, you're going to get 400 pounds of nitrogen per acre. And again, that's the highest nitrogen that most crops, I don't even know what crop you put 400 nitrogen on. You don't need that much. That's what you do, is try to get your protozoas up. And you know what protozoa eat? Bacteria. So all you have to do is feed the bacteria. You don't have to feed because the protozoa is going to come if they're in the soil. Then what we do is feed the organic matter. The soil and the soil life feeds the nutrients to the plants. It's just what we call the biology eats at the first table. What they do is take inorganic minerals, take it in their bodies, they die, and the plants come along and takes it from there into the plant life, and then we take and eat the plant life. So when a farmer puts on his other nutrients, we can either reduce them significantly. We say the first year, minimum 30% reduction, because we're trying to get the soil turned around, and there's all kinds of toxins and problems in there, so we can't grow the biology like we want to unless you have a higher concentration of the material. Most people say, oh, it's too expensive, and they don't try it for a while. But you put enough on there, you can grow it that quick, and you can reduce these nutrients. But if you put that life in that soil, either organic matter or this is the lowest cost, we say, you then put your nutrients on, you're going to get your yields closer to the maximum genetic potential of that crop. That's what we're talking about. Here's the recycling of the nitrogen is produced by these various forms in this particular biology. To produce the bacteria, you have to have 7 carbons for every nitrogen that's in the soil. If I have somebody producing my nitrogen, all I need to do is have somebody put carbon in for my soil. With that, it produces the bacteria. The protozoas and nematodes eat the bacteria, or the nematodes eat bacteria and protozoas. They cause nitrogen as their release, and that's where we're getting our nitrogen from. And the nematodes. And everybody's scared of nematodes. There's only about 5 bad species, and there's about 200 good guys to every 5 guys that are bad out there. And what they do, they put nematicides on and kill them all. Not only they kill the nematodes, they kill the protozoas, and they kill the bacteria. So here we go. How are we going to get the soil back to what we're going to put life back in the soil? How am I going to feed it if I kill everybody? Well, it's going to take a little time to get that done. And that's what we're going on in that cycle. The Americans, they're really high in chemistry. They just throw everything onto chemistry. Now they're saying, what happened to my soil? And I think around the world begin to realize we are on the wrong treadmill. It's going downhill. We're not building a better environment because we're not taking care of the life of the soil. It turns out CBX is about 35% liquid organic carbon in the form of fulvic acid. We're going to go into a little more detail why we chose fulvic acid. Because in that deposit is the fulvic acid from ancient plant life.